One spy from the Union was named Sarah Emma Edmonds. Sarah wanted to show devotion to her country, so she became a federal field nurse to serve the sick and wounded. She grew tired of this and disguised herself as Frank Thompson and decided to enlist into the Army. At first she was rejected, but later was admitted. While in the Army, she learned of her close childhood friend's death and vowed to get revenge on the Confederacy, so she became a spy. Emma fulfilled her goal on getting revenge by giving Union generals useful information about the Confederacy Army and helping the Union win the Civil War. Her first task was to figure out defense layouts of the Confederate soldiers. She reported all information to Union generals, but the most important information she got was a full description of the Confederacy's camps and forces. The Union then reconstructed themselves and had victory on that battle. Edmonds was one of the most famous Civil War spies.
Alan Pinkerton was born in Scotland in 1819. By the 1850s, Pinkerton is settled in Chicago and is a deputy sheriff. In 1852, he founded the Pinkerton Detective Agency. This was the first detective agency in the United States. In 1861, the agency was given the honorable task of guarding Abraham Lincoln going to Washington for his inauguration. In Baltimore, Pinkerton saved Lincoln by foiling an assassination plan. During the Civil War, Pinkerton came up with several investigating techniques, like shadowing, which is the surveillance of a suspect, or assuming a role, which is also known as undercover work. He also served as the head of the Union Intelligence Service. The Intelligence Service later became known as the U.S. Secret Service. This is why Pinkerton is a famous Union spy.
Another spy in the Civil War is Belle Boyd. She wanted to help the Confederacy as much as possible when the Civil War started. She started out by just shooting the soldiers of the Union, but then giving information to the Confederate officers became a normal routine. She reported on Union troop movements and Union battle plans, and she was glad that she did that. Belle Boyd once said, "If it is a crime to love the South, its cause and its president, then I am a criminal. I'd rather lie down in this prison and die than leave it owing allegiance to the government such as yours." She ended up giving crucial information to Stonewall Jackson about the war. She escaped twice, but on her third escape she got captured by Union soldiers. This is why Belle Boyd was one of the most famous Confederate spies.
One of the most famous Confederate spies is Rose O'Neal Greenhow. Born in Port Tobacco, Maryland in 1817, she was raised on her family's farm, but as a teenager moved to her aunt's house in Washington, D.C. She believed the North wanted to destroy the political and economic power of the South, and they were using slavery to do so. As well as thinking Lincoln was unfairly elected, she believed Northerners wanted to drive the black population away and let their own people fill their population. When the Civil War began, Washington, D.C. was allied with the North. Outraged, Greenhow promised she would do anything she could to protect the South. Many people left D.C. to join the Confederacy, but she remained to spy on the Union using her social connections. Rose O'Neal Greenhow became famous for the influence she had on the First Battle of Bull Run. She learned the Union was going to attack near Virginia, how many troops they had, and how they planned to get there. Greenhow sent a friend into Virginia dressed as a farm girl. The message was written in code, rolled into the woman's hair, and successfully delivered. One day she was stopped by two men as she went into her house. They searched and tore apart her house without a warrant. It was announced that her house would be converted into a prison, with other prisoners going with her. She later died on October 1st, 1864.
Elizabeth Crazy Bet Van Loo was born in New York on October 12, 1818. She was never shy about her opinions and frequently argued with her father, insisting that he freed the 9 slaves owned by the family. Van Loo got a direct line on confidential info about the Confederacy's war plans when she became a nurse. She returned. After first land battle of war, Federal prisoners began to arrive in Richmond, and Van Loo was shocked by the poor treatment they received and volunteered to supply them with food, clothing, and medicine. While bringing in supplies, she also managed to gather intelligence from the prison guards as well as prisoners who had been. Van Loo also gathered information through a wide network of her own employees and slaves who were still in bondage. She also used her society connections to gather info on the Confederacy. She also used her society connections to gather info on the Confederacy. As a member of Richmond's upper class, she often hosted parties in her home for Richmond's high-ranking officials and other elite families. Van Lew was known for the accuracy of her info. Her solid reputation meant that she communicated with some of the Federals' highest-ranking officers, like Ulysses S. Grant. On April 1865, the Federal Army overtook Richmond. Van Lew had an American flag smuggled through the lines, and when Richmond surrendered, she and her servants climbed to the house roof and raised it. General George H. Sharp proposed that Van Lew be appointed $15,000 for her efforts during the war. This is why Van Lew was a very famous spy.
These 5 spies were key players in the Civil War.
Sarah Emma Edmond, Alan Pinkerton, Belle Boyd, Rose O'Neal Greenhow, and Elizabeth Crazy Bet Van Lew were all spies in the Civil War that were clearly needed. Without these spies, the officers and generals in the Civil War may have not got the information that they needed.